desired company. One sunny morning, I released Oscar into the aviary inhabited by a dozen zebra finches, gregarious little red-beaked birds with distinctive black and white striping. As I had hoped, Oscar became animated once he was in their company. He hopped around the aviary floor, exploring every inch. The zebra finches landed one by one, looked him over, and accepted him on the spot. I checked on Oscar several times during the day. Now that he had company, he became a gregarious, energetic flock member. That changed at nighttime. When the zebra finches flew up to the highest perches to roost, Oscar didn't join them. He spent that evening and the next on the floor, huddled on top of the seed dish in the corner. Was he being bullied? At dusk, I lurked out of sight near the aviary to try to identify the culprit. All 13 finches ate their dinner with gusto and preened their side and back feathers. Then, one by one, they flew to the high perches until only Oscar was left on the ground. He flapped his wings over and over and over again. He could achieve liftoff, but was able to rise only an inch or two off the ground before falling back down. He tried and tried until exhaustion forced him to stop. Oscar hopped slowly to the corner seed dish, tucked his head under his wings, and fell asleep. I admired his moxie, but a flightless bird can be vulnerable, fatally so. Handicapped birds usually don't survive very long, even in a protected aviary. Either they are harassed by other birds, or they succumb to disease because they are usually confined to the floor, which is the dirtiest part of an aviary. I considered transferring him back to an inside cage, but he clearly needed company. I'd just have to get him off the ground. I decided to improvise a low corner perch made from a bamboo gardening stake. When I walked into the aviary to work on it, the zebras panicked and flew up to the highest roosts. Oscar calmly stood his ground and watched. I threaded the bamboo stake through the wire holes on one side of the cage corner and prepared to cut it to the proper size. Oscar hopped up on the perch before I had fastened the other end. Now what? Oscar showed no fear as we sat next to each other. He stayed firmly seated on the makeshift perch, so I decided to leave it in place. I put another piece of bamboo through the wires in order to get another measurement, but before I pulled it out, Oscar had hopped upward to this second perch. By then, he was about 5 inches off the ground. Instead of looking at me, his gaze had swiveled 2 inches up to a point in the wire where he could reach another perch if some slow-witted human placed it there right away. I realized what Oscar had in mind. I had brought several stakes of different diameters and lengths with me, and I ended up using them all. Quickly, we developed a routine. Oscar would gaze fixedly at the optimal spot, and I'd put another stake there, a couple of inches up from the last. We continued building a ladder together, with a few delays owing to human error. Sometimes I placed a perch a bit too high for him to reach. Oscar would try, but when he failed to make the distance, he would settle on the perch below and stare at the right spot until I corrected my mistake. I ran out of stakes a couple of feet from the aviary's highest perches. Oscar spent one more night on the ground, and the following morning I came back with more wooden dowels. We repeated our routine. Oscar would direct me with his stare, I would add the next rung, and he would test hop to it. It took 28 perches to build Oscar's ladder, but when it was finished, he was able to access some of the highest roosting places in the aviary. Every trip up and down took stamina and patience, but Oscar was game. Over the months, the drab little castaway flourished. By the end of the next molting season, Oscar had grown a glossy new set of feathers. I had hoped that better feathering would enable him to fly, but it did not. He continued to use his ladder to get to perches when he wanted to take a nap or retire for the night. The zebra finches treated Oscar as a full member of their flock. They were equally accepting of Gail, a middle-aged female Lady Gouldian finch whom I adopted from a local humane society. Gail had languished there because her head was bald and she was not desired as a pet. One handsome, flightless